President Helen Foster stood before the assembled cameras in the White House Situation Room, her expression carrying the weight of a decision that would reshape galactic civilization. Behind her, holographic displays showed the strategic situation across dozens of star systems where human forces were pressing their advantage against a reeling confederation. The time for half measures was over. "My fellow humans," she began, her voice carrying to every colony and outpost throughout human space. "The galaxy has seen what happens when diplomacy fails. The Confederation demanded our surrender and received our answer. Today I address not just our own people, but every species that has lived under the illusion of Confederation superiority." The President paused, her eyes reflecting the cold determination that had carried humanity from the caves of Earth to the stars beyond. "We did not seek this war, but we will finish it. The galaxy will remember why apex predators do not bow to committee-designed herbivores." Admiral Peter Hayes received the authorization codes aboard his flagship as it led the largest human fleet ever assembled toward the heart of Confederation space. Operation Thunderstrike had been planned for 15 years, waiting for the moment when humanity would no longer pretend to be weak. That moment had arrived. "All fleet commanders report ready, sir," his communications officer announced. "We have confirmation from 17 separate task forces positioned throughout Confederation territory." Peter studied the tactical display that showed the true scope of human preparation. While the aliens had believed they were monitoring a small collection of struggling colonies, humanity had been positioning forces for simultaneous strikes against every major Confederation stronghold. The deception had been so complete that even now, as human ships emerged from hyperspace across the galaxy, enemy forces were caught completely unprepared. "Execute the attack plan," Peter commanded. "Signal all task forces to begin Phase 1 of Thunderstrike. Let's teach them what total war really means." The coordinated assault that followed redefined the concept of military strategy. Human forces struck 17 Confederation fortress systems simultaneously, their attacks timed to prevent any possibility of mutual support between enemy installations. Where alien military doctrine emphasized defensive positions and established protocols, humans demonstrated the devastating effectiveness of coordinated aggression. Lieutenant Colonel Amy Chen led the assault on the Stellari Crystal Gardens of Vega 7, her troops demonstrating the terrifying adaptability that marked human soldiers throughout the galaxy. The crystalline beings had assumed their homeworld's unique environment would provide natural protection against invasion, but they had underestimated human ingenuity. "Ma'am, the enemy is retreating to their resonance chambers," reported Captain John Davis over the tactical network. "They're trying to use sonic attacks to disrupt our equipment." Amy smiled grimly as she adjusted her suit's harmonic dampeners, technology that existed only because human engineers had spent decades studying every possible alien defense. "Follow standard xenocombat protocols. If they want to fight with sound, we'll show them what real noise sounds like." The human soldiers moved through the crystal formations with precision that bordered on artistic, their weapons calibrated to shatter the delicate structures that formed the foundation of Stellari civilization. What should have been an impregnable fortress world became a showcase for human tactical superiority as defenders found themselves unable to counter enemies who had prepared for every possible scenario. "Captain Mark Thompson," commanded the space assault on the Confederation shipyards at Wolf 359, leading a force that demonstrated the true depth of human military preparation. His ships moved with coordination that suggested years of joint training, their attacks revealing technologies that violated everything the aliens thought they knew about warfare. "Sir, enemy defense platforms are activating," his tactical officer reported. "They're bringing their heavy weapons online." Mark watched the massive orbital installations turn toward his fleet, with weapons that could crack planets, their crews confident in the superiority of Confederation military engineering. They were about to learn that human scientists had been studying their technology for generations, developing countermeasures that turned their greatest strengths into fatal weaknesses. "Deploy the resonance scramblers," Mark ordered. "Let's show them what happens when you build your weapons around predictable energy patterns." The human devices activated across the battlefield, sending carefully calculated interference patterns that turned the Confederation's own weapons against them. Defense platforms that had protected the system for centuries suddenly found their targeting systems compromised, their power cores destabilizing, their crews helpless as their most advanced technology became useless scrap metal. Dr. Greg Miller, watched from his laboratory as field reports confirmed the effectiveness of humanity's most classified weapons projects. The nanoscale warfare systems his team had developed were proving devastatingly effective against alien technology, turning enemy ships into weapons against their own forces with surgical precision. "Sir, the adaptive nanites are performing beyond all projections," his lead researcher reported with barely contained excitement. "We're seeing cascade failures throughout Confederation computer networks. Their ships are attacking each other faster than we can target them." Greg nodded with satisfaction as he monitored the real-time battlefield data. Human military doctrine had always emphasized using every available advantage, and the ability to turn enemy technology into a weapon was perhaps the ultimate expression of that philosophy. The careful balance of galactic power was crumbling as alien ships became instruments of their own destruction. Engineer Sandra Lee coordinated the deployment of humanity's most ambitious military project from her command center on Luna. The gravity well manipulators her team had developed represented the pinnacle of human engineering achievement. Devices capable of creating localized space-time distortions that could crush entire fleets or redirect planetary orbits. "Ma'am, all gravitational manipulation stations report ready for deployment," her assistant announced. "Target locks confirmed on primary Confederation strongholds." Sandra studied the tactical displays that showed the strategic situation across the galaxy, each marker representing years of careful preparation and technological development. "Begin the demonstration. Let's show them what happens when you threaten the homeworld of a species that considers physics a suggestion rather than a law." The effects were immediate and terrifying. Confederation fleets found themselves caught in gravity wells that compressed their ships like insects in a closing fist. Entire battle formations were scattered across solar systems as localized space-time distortions turned carefully planned maneuvers into chaotic disasters. The aliens were facing weapons that defied their understanding of what was scientifically possible. Admiral Claire Morgan, formerly Ambassador Morgan, led the assault on the Confederation Council chambers where she had sat just days earlier, pretending to negotiate humanity's surrender. Her fleet emerged from hyperspace with weapons already charged, their targeting systems locked onto the crystalline structure that had housed galactic government for 3 centuries. "Ma'am, the High Chancellor is attempting to open communications," her communications officer reported. "She's requesting immediate ceasefire negotiations." Claire studied the alien stronghold that had been designed to project overwhelming authority and found herself unmoved by its grandeur. "Inform the High Chancellor that humanity has moved beyond the negotiation phase of this conflict. We're now in the education portion of our relationship." The bombardment that followed was precise and methodical, each shot calculated to disable rather than destroy. Human military doctrine emphasized the value of symbolic victories, and there was enormous symbolic value in demonstrating that the seat of galactic power could be neutralized at will by forces the Confederation had dismissed as primitive. Captain Lisa Park demonstrated the ultimate expression of human naval tactics as she led her squadron through the defended space around Proxima Centauri. Her ships moved with fluid coordination that suggested telepathic communication, their weapon systems working in harmony to create fields of destruction that no enemy could navigate. "Ma'am, the Zephyrian defenders are attempting to form a battle line," her tactical officer reported. "They're following standard defensive protocols." Lisa smiled coldly as she watched the alien ships maneuver into textbook formations that human strategists had studied for decades. "Execute pattern Omega. Time to show them why predictable tactics are fatal against adaptive enemies." The human ships responded with movements that defied conventional military wisdom, their attack patterns revealing tactical innovations that had been developed through years of studying alien weaknesses. Where Confederation forces relied on established procedures and proven strategies, humans demonstrated the devastating effectiveness of creative warfare. The results were consistent across every battlefield. Human forces were not just winning individual engagements, they were systematically dismantling the military infrastructure that had maintained galactic order for millennia. General Maria Santos stood in the command center of Fort Olympus, watching tactical displays that showed the full scope of the Confederation's response to humanity's revelation. The massive battle station hung in the shadow of Jupiter's largest moon, its exterior still maintaining the appearance of a civilian habitat, while its interior hummed with military precision. The aliens had taken the bait perfectly. "Ma'am, Confederation First Fleet is approaching the outer system perimeter," reported Colonel Jeff Miller from his position at the tactical station. "Admiral Kethvar is leading the assault personally. Intelligence suggests they're bringing everything they have." Maria nodded grimly. The Confederation's response was exactly what human strategists had predicted. Faced with the shocking revelation of humanity's true military capabilities, they had decided to crush the human threat before it could spread further. What they didn't understand was that they were walking into the largest trap in military history. "Signal all stations," Maria commanded. "Execute defense pattern Omega. Let's show them what happens when you threaten Earth." Throughout the solar system, installations that had masqueraded as research stations and mining platforms revealed their true nature. The asteroid belt itself became a weapon, as hidden mass drivers began hurling projectiles at relativistic speeds toward the incoming fleet. What the aliens had assumed was humanity's primitive industrial base transformed into the most sophisticated defensive network ever. Constructed Commander Alex Turner led the first wave of the human counterattack from his position aboard the UES Retribution. His squadron had spent months positioned beyond the heliopause, waiting for exactly this moment. The Confederation fleet had no idea they were about to be caught between hammer and anvil. "All ships report ready, sir," his communications officer announced. "We're in position to strike their rear formations." Alex studied the tactical display, counting enemy vessels with the cold precision of a predator sizing up prey. The Confederation had brought over 1,000 ships to humanity's doorstep, confident that overwhelming numbers would compensate for any technological surprises. They were about to learn how wrong they could be. "Begin the attack," Alex ordered. "Target their command ships first. Let's cut off the head and watch the body thrash." The human ships struck from multiple vectors simultaneously, their coordinated assault pattern revealing months of careful planning. Where Confederation tactics relied on massive frontal assaults and established battle formations, humans fought like the apex predators they had always been, using mobility and precision to tear apart larger forces. The battle for New Geneva became the stuff of legend. Captain Ben Rodriguez had transformed the agricultural colony into a death trap that would define human military doctrine for generations to come. As Korthak assault ships descended through the atmosphere, expecting to find terrified farmers hiding in their fields, the planet's surface began to move. "Sir, enemy forces are committing to ground assault," reported his tactical officer from the underground command bunker. "They're landing troops in sectors 7 through 12. Ben smiled coldly as he watched the alien forces deploy across what appeared to be open farmland. "Activate the surface defenses. Let's give them a proper welcome." The fields themselves erupted as camouflaged weapon emplacements rose from hidden positions. What had appeared to be grain silos revealed themselves as missile batteries. Irrigation systems became conduits for defensive plasma networks. The entire planet was a weapon, and the Korthak forces found themselves trapped in a killing field with no escape. Engineer Katie Bell monitored the planetary defense grid from her position deep beneath the colony's surface. The installation she had designed was a masterpiece of deception and engineering, combining the appearance of peaceful agriculture with the reality of military preparation. "Ma'am, all defensive systems are operating at peak efficiency," her assistant reported. "The enemy assault force is being systematically eliminated." Katie nodded with professional satisfaction. Human engineering had always excelled at solving complex problems, and disguising a fortress world as a farming colony had required innovations that pushed the boundaries of what was thought possible. The results spoke for themselves as Confederation forces died in the thousands above. The space battle reached its climax as Admiral Ryan Clark brought the full weight of the human fleet to bear against the Confederation's finest commanders. His ships moved with coordination that bordered on telepathic, each vessel anticipating the movements of its companions in a deadly dance that carved through enemy formations like a scythe through wheat. "Sir, the enemy flagship is breaking formation," reported his tactical officer. "Admiral Kethvar appears to be attempting a fighting withdrawal." Ryan studied the tactical display with the eye of someone who had spent decades preparing for this moment. "Signal the 3rd Squadron to intercept. Don't let any of their command ships escape. We need them to see what they're truly up against." The human ships responded with mechanical precision, their movements revealing the true depth of human military preparation. Every captain had trained for years in simulators that perfectly replicated Confederation ship capabilities. Every tactical scenario had been studied and countered. The aliens were fighting an enemy that knew their every weakness while they remained ignorant of human strengths. Lieutenant Colonel Amy Chen led the ground assault on the Zephyrian stronghold at Rigel Prime, demonstrating the terrifying adaptability that marked human soldiers throughout the galaxy. Her troops fought in environmental suits that allowed them to operate in conditions that would kill most alien species, turning hostile terrain into an advantage, ma'am. Enemy forces are retreating to their underground bunkers, reported Sergeant Carl Wright over the communications network. They're trying to use the lava tubes for cover. Amy smiled grimly inside her helmet as she led her soldiers through terrain that would have challenged mountain climbers on Earth. Follow them in. If they want to fight in hell, we'll show them who the real demons are. The battle that followed became a textbook example of human tactical superiority. Where alien forces relied on established positions and defensive protocols, humans adapted to every situation with deadly creativity. They used the planet's volcanic activity as a weapon, channeled lava flows to trap enemy positions, and turned the underground tunnels into a maze of death for any defender foolish enough to remain. Dr. Greg Miller's Weapons Research Division finally revealed their most classified projects as human ships, deployed technologies that defied everything the Confederation thought they knew about warfare. Nanoscale weapons that could reprogram enemy systems in real time, turned alien ships against their own fleets. Gravitational manipulators created localized space-time distortions that crushed enemy vessels like tin cans. Sir, the field test results are exceeding all projections, his lead researcher reported from the secure laboratory. The adaptive nanite swarms are successfully compromising Confederation computer systems across the entire battle zone. Greg nodded with satisfaction as he watched alien ships turn their weapons on each other, their crews helpless as human-designed viruses took control of their technology. Deploy the next phase. Let's show them what happens when you underestimate human innovation. The revelation of humanity's true technological capabilities sent shockwaves through Confederation, forces already reeling from tactical defeats. Ships that had served faithfully for centuries suddenly became liabilities as their own systems turned against them. The careful balance of galactic power that had existed for millennia crumbled in a matter of hours. Captain Sophie Williams demonstrated the ultimate expression of human naval warfare as her ship engaged 3 Confederation dreadnoughts simultaneously. The UES Horizon moved through space with grace that defied physics, its weapon systems coordinating in patterns that suggested artificial intelligence beyond anything the aliens possessed. Ma'am, enemy ships are attempting to coordinate their fire, her tactical officer reported. They're trying to overwhelm our defensive systems. Sophie watched the massive alien vessels maneuver with ponderous determination, their crews following textbook tactics that human strategists had studied for decades. Let them try. Execute pattern Delta 7, time to demonstrate superior firepower. The Horizon's weapons opened up with devastating precision, each shot calculated to cause maximum damage to critical systems. Where alien weapons relied on brute force and overwhelming energy output, human weapons used intelligence and precision to achieve surgical destruction. The 3 dreadnoughts found themselves systematically dismantled by an enemy they couldn't even target effectively. As the battle reached its conclusion, the scope of humanity's victory became clear. The Confederation's finest fleet lay in ruins, its surviving ships fleeing in disorder while human forces consolidated their positions throughout the system. The galaxy's greatest military powers had been humbled by a species they had dismissed as primitive newcomers. The war machine that humanity had built in secret was now fully awakened, and its appetite for victory was just beginning to show itself. The Confederation had wanted to crush the human threat, but instead they had unleashed something far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. Admiral Ryan Clark stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, watching the stars through the massive viewport that dominated the forward wall. His ship hung motionless in the void between systems, along with 300 other vessels that officially did not exist. The 48-hour countdown had begun, and every second brought them closer to revealing humanity's greatest secret. The quantum communicator chimed softly, and Ryan turned to his communications officer. Lieutenant Kate Morrison looked up from her console with barely contained excitement. "Admiral, we're receiving the signal from Ambassador Morgan," she reported. Message reads, "The Dove has landed. Release the Hawks." Ryan felt a smile spread across his weathered face. After 30 years of military service, he had waited his entire career for this moment. "Signal the fleet," he commanded. "Execute Protocol 7. Across the hidden flotilla, captains who had spent decades pretending to be civilian merchants and explorers finally dropped their masks. Ship hulls that had appeared worn and outdated suddenly revealed hidden armor plating. Cargo bays opened to expose weapon systems that violated every known law of physics. The human fleet transformed before the eyes of any observers from a collection of rust buckets into the most advanced armada the galaxy had ever seen. Captain Sophie Williams felt the UES horizon shudder as her ship's true systems came online. For 5 years, she had commanded what appeared to be a simple research vessel, complete with civilian markings and a crew that spent their time collecting stellar dust samples and mapping gravitational anomalies. The charade was finally over. "All systems showing green, Captain," reported her tactical officer, Commander Dan Parker. "Weapons are charged and ready. The Confederation patrol ships are exactly where intelligence predicted they would be." Sophie nodded, studying the 3 alien vessels on her display. The Korthak heavy cruiser and its 2 escort frigates were conducting what they believed was a routine patrol of human space. Confident in their technological superiority, and never imagining that the small research ship they had been casually monitoring was about to demonstrate just how wrong they were. "Open a channel to the lead ship," Sophie ordered. The insectoid face of the Korthak captain appeared on her screen, mandibles clicking in what passed for amusement among his species. "Human vessel, you are ordered to halt and prepare for boarding. Your species' time of reckoning has arrived." Sophie's expression remained perfectly calm. "I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding, Captain. You see, we're not the ones who should be worried about a reckoning." Before the alien could respond, Sophie cut the transmission and nodded to her weapons officer. "Fire!" The space around the Confederation ships erupted in brilliant flashes of energy as the horizon's hidden weapon systems engaged. What had appeared to be sensor arrays revealed themselves as particle beam projectors that sliced through alien shields like they were made of paper. The Korthak cruiser's weapons never had a chance to charge before its power systems were surgically disabled by precision strikes. The 2 escort frigates tried to flee, but the Horizon's engines produced acceleration that defied everything the Confederation knew about human propulsion technology. Within minutes, all 3 ships hung dead in space, their crews alive but helpless as human boarding parties, prepared to collect intelligence and prisoners. Dr. Nathan Cross monitored the operation from his command center deep beneath the surface of Earth's moon. As head of human intelligence, he had spent the last 20 years orchestrating the greatest deception in galactic history. Around him, dozens of analysts tracked similar engagements happening across human space as the mask finally came off. "Sir," called Agent Linda Foster from her workstation, "we're getting confirmation from all sectors. Operation Revelation is proceeding exactly as planned. Confederation forces are showing complete surprise at our actual capabilities." Nathan nodded with satisfaction. Every detail had been carefully planned and executed. The aliens thought they were dealing with a young species that had stumbled into space travel through luck and persistence. They had no idea that humans had been deliberately concealing their true technological advancement for generations. "What's the status on the industrial sites?" Nathan asked. "All construction platforms are revealing their true purpose now, sir," Linda reported. "The aliens are about to discover that our mining operations have been building fortress stations for the last 15 years. The revelation was already spreading panic through Confederation space. What had appeared to be simple asteroid mining platforms suddenly deployed massive weapon arrays and shield generators. Trade stations revealed themselves as military command centers. Civilian transports shed their harmless exteriors to become warships that outclassed anything in the alien fleets. Commander Alex Turner watched from his position aboard the UES Retribution as the transformation swept across the Tau Ceti system. His ship had spent 3 years masquerading as a heavy freighter, regularly visited by Confederation customs officials who never suspected they were inspecting one of humanity's most advanced destroyers. "Sir," his sensor officer reported, "Confederation reinforcements are jumping into the system." "Looks like a full battle group," Alex smiled grimly. The aliens were about to learn their first lesson about human military doctrine. "Signal the other ships in the convoy. Time to show them what a real freighter can do. The 12 vessels that had been peacefully hauling cargo through Confederation space for years suddenly coordinated in a maneuver that would have impressed professional naval commanders. Their civilian hulls fell away like discarded clothing, revealing sleek warships bristling with weapons that had been reverse-engineered from captured alien technology and improved beyond recognition. The Confederation battle group found themselves facing an enemy they had never imagined. Human tactics were unlike anything in their military manuals. Where alien fleets relied on formal battle lines and established protocols, humans fought like predators, using every advantage of terrain and timing to maximum effect. Captain Ben Rodriguez demonstrated this perfectly as he commanded the defense of the mining colony on Kepler 442, the Confederation assault force expected to find frightened colonists hiding in underground shelters. Instead, they discovered that the entire planet was a trap. The Zephyrian fleet is entering the gravity well, his tactical officer reported from the hidden command center. Ben watched the alien ships descend toward what appeared to be a helpless mining colony. Wait until they're committed to their attack run, then activate the surface batteries. The planet's surface erupted as camouflaged weapon emplacements revealed themselves. Particle cannons that had been disguised as mining equipment opened fire with devastating accuracy. The Confederation ships found themselves caught in a crossfire from positions they hadn't even known existed. Engineer Katie Bell monitored the battle from her station deep within the planet's core. For 10 years, she had supervised the construction of what the aliens believed was a simple mineral extraction operation. In reality, they had built a fortress world capable of defending itself against any threat the Confederation could bring to bear. "Ma'am, all defensive systems are performing within optimal parameters," her assistant reported. "The hybrid fusion antimatter reactors are providing more than enough power for sustained operations." Katie nodded, pride evident in her expression. Human engineering had always excelled at solving impossible problems, and the challenge of secretly militarizing an entire planet while maintaining the appearance of civilian mining had pushed their capabilities to new heights. The results spoke for themselves. What should have been a quick strike against a defenseless colony had become a massacre of Confederation forces who found themselves outgunned, outmaneuvered, and completely unprepared for the reality of human military capability. As reports flooded in from across human space, the scope of the deception became clear. Every human colony was a fortress. Every civilian ship was a potential warship. Every mining operation was a military installation in disguise. For decades, humanity had been building the most powerful military force in the galaxy while convincing everyone else they were struggling farmers and merchants. The peace talks had been humanity's final attempt to find a diplomatic solution, but they had always known it would probably come to this. The galaxy was about to learn that the species which had dominated the most dangerous planet in existence had not grown soft during their expansion to the stars. The mask had finally fallen, and the face beneath it was far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. The massive crystal dome of the Confederation Council chamber stretched high above the gathering delegates like a frozen wave of starlight. Claire Morgan walked through the entrance with measured steps, her black diplomatic uniform crisp and formal against the alien architecture that surrounded them. Behind her came Colonel Jake Peterson, his military bearing evident despite wearing civilian clothes, and Dr. Lisa Hayes, whose nervous energy contrasted sharply with her companion's calm demeanor. 12 species had gathered for what many believed would be humanity's final surrender. The air hummed with translation devices as dozens of different languages merged into a cacophony of expectation. Claire observed each delegate carefully as she took her assigned seat at the far end of the curved table, noting the smugness in their postures and the dismissive glances thrown her way. High Chancellor Vexithera of the Zephyrians stood at the chamber's center, her tall frame casting long shadows across the polished floor. Her species had ruled the Confederation for 3 centuries, and her authority was absolute. The ridged plates along her skull gleamed under the artificial lighting as she began to speak. "We gather today to address the human problem," Vexithera announced, her voice carrying easily through the vast chamber. "For too long, this young species has violated our borders, established colonies without permission, and demonstrated the violent tendencies that mark all primitive civilizations." Claire kept her expression neutral, while internally cataloging every word. The Zephyrian was following the script perfectly, just as human intelligence had predicted. She glanced briefly at Jake, who gave an almost imperceptible nod. Phase 1 was proceeding exactly as planned. The Korthak representative, a massive creature covered in chitinous armor, slammed one of his forearms against the table. The violent newcomers must be contained before they contaminate more systems with their aggression, he growled through his translator. My people have monitored their expansion for 50 cycles, and we have seen nothing but conquest disguised as colonization. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. The Stellari delegate, her crystalline form refracting light in prismatic patterns, added her voice to the chorus of condemnation. These humans lack the refinement necessary for galactic citizenship. They wage war upon their own homeworld even as they spread to the stars. Such barbarity cannot be tolerated among civilized species. Claire finally stood, her movement drawing all attention to her small human delegation. Honored delegates, she began, her voice steady and respectful. Humanity seeks only peaceful coexistence with our galactic neighbors. We have come here in good faith to address your concerns and find a path forward that benefits all parties. The chamber erupted in what could only be described as laughter, though it came in forms as varied as the species present. The methane breathers produced a sound like escaping gas, while the gravitic dancers created harmonic vibrations that made the floor shake slightly. Vexthera raised a hand for silence. Your good faith, Ambassador Morgan, is noted but irrelevant. We did not summon you here for negotiations. We called you here to, deliver terms that your species will accept without question. The High Chancellor activated a holographic display that filled the chamber with images of human colonies scattered across dozens of star systems. Red markers appeared over each settlement, pulsing like warning lights. First, Vexithera continued, all human settlements beyond your birth system of Sol must be evacuated within one standard cycle. Your people will return to their homeworld and remain there under Confederation monitoring. Jake's jaw tightened slightly, but he remained silent as the terms continued. Second, all human technology will be surrendered for inspection and approval before any device may be used beyond your atmosphere. We cannot allow a species of your violent nature access to weapons that might threaten peaceful civilizations. Dr. Hayes shifted in her seat, her scientific mind already calculating the implications of technological restrictions on human development. Third and finally, the High Chancellor said with obvious satisfaction, humanity will accept vassal status under direct Confederation oversight. Your leaders will report to appointed governors from more civilized species who will guide your development away from your current barbaric tendencies. The silence that followed was deafening. Claire could feel the expectation in the room, the certainty among the alien delegates that humanity would have no choice but to accept these crushing terms. They saw a species barely 2 centuries into space travel, with a small fleet of seemingly primitive ships and colonies that appeared to struggle against the harsh realities of interstellar existence. What they did not see was the slight smile that played at the corners of Claire's mouth. These terms, she said slowly, are quite comprehensive. I must commend the Confederation for their thoroughness in addressing what they perceive as the human threat. The choice of words was deliberate, and Jake caught the subtle emphasis immediately. This was not a woman preparing to surrender. However, Claire continued, such sweeping changes to humanity's existence cannot be agreed to lightly. My government will need time to properly consider the full implications of your generous offer. Several delegates began to object, but Claire held up a hand in a gesture that somehow commanded attention despite her species' apparent weakness. Formally request a 48-hour recess to consult with Earth and our colonial administrations. Surely the Confederation, in its wisdom and patience, can allow us this small courtesy before we provide our final answer. Vexithara's expression showed mild annoyance, but she had expected some delay. These humans were young and foolish, but they were not completely stupid. They would need time to accept the inevitable. Very well, the High Chancellor declared. 48 hours will be granted for humanity to reach the obvious conclusion. We will reconvene to accept your compliance with Confederation terms. As the session adjourned, Claire gathered her materials with unhurried precision. Around the chamber, alien delegates clustered in small groups, their conversations filled with satisfaction and anticipation. They spoke of dividing human colonies among themselves, of studying human physiology for weaknesses, of finally putting the troublesome newcomers in their proper place. None of them noticed the small device hidden in Claire's diplomatic case or the brief message it transmitted across space using quantum entanglement, technology that theoretically did not exist in human hands. Walking toward the exit, Jake leaned close enough to whisper, "Think they bought it?" Claire's smile became more pronounced as they stepped into the corridor beyond the chamber. "They bought exactly what we were selling, Colonel. The question now is whether they're prepared for what comes next." Dr. Hayes looked between them with growing understanding. "The dove has landed?" she asked quietly. "Indeed," Claire replied, her diplomat's mask finally beginning to slip. "Time to release the hawks." In the depths of space, receivers picked up the quantum signal and began transmitting it across dozens of star systems where human ships waited in patient darkness. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when you cornered a species that had clawed its way to the top of the most dangerous food chain in known existence. The peace talks had served their purpose, but peace was never really an option, not when the alternative was so much more interesting. The once proud Confederation Council chamber lay in ruins, its crystal dome cracked and darkened, its holographic displays flickering with damaged systems. Claire Morgan walked through the debris with the measured pace of a conqueror surveying her prize, her diplomatic uniform replaced by the dark blue of a human military commander. The roles had reversed completely from just weeks earlier. High Chancellor Vexithera knelt among the wreckage of her throne, her elegant form now bearing the marks of humanity's surgical strike against the seat of galactic power. Around her, the surviving delegates from 12 species waited in terrified silence for judgment from the primitives they had sought to crush. "Honored delegates," Claire began, her voice carrying the same respectful tone she had used during the peace negotiations, though now it carried an undertone of iron that made several aliens flinch. "We find ourselves in a familiar situation, discussing terms for the future of our galaxy. The only difference is who sits where." The Korthak representative, his chitinous armor cracked and stained with the purple blood of his species, managed to raise his massive head. "What do you want from us, human?" Claire smiled, the expression carrying no warmth whatsoever. "The same thing you wanted from us, Commander. Compliance." Admiral Ryan Clark's fleet held position around the Confederation capital world, their weapons trained on the planetary defense systems that had been systematically dismantled during the final assault. His ships no longer maintained any pretense of civilian appearance, their hulls gleaming with the predatory sleekness of apex predators finally revealing their true nature. "Sir, we're receiving surrender offers from the remaining Confederation fleets throughout the galaxy," reported his communications officer, with barely restrained satisfaction. "Total enemy losses are approaching 80% of their combined military strength." Ryan nodded grimly as he studied the tactical displays showing human forces in control of every major system in Confederation space. The war had lasted barely 2 months, but its outcome had reshaped the balance of galactic power forever. "Signal all commands to maintain aggressive postures. We accept surrenders, but we don't negotiate with them." Captain Sophie Williams established the Human Forward Command Center in what had been the Confederation's primary military academy, her engineering teams converting the facility into a demonstration of human organizational superiority. The aliens who had trained here for centuries in the arts of galactic warfare now watched helplessly as their conquerors implemented systems that operated with machine-like efficiency. "Ma'am, integration of Confederation data networks is proceeding ahead of schedule," reported Commander Dan Parker from his position at the intelligence station. "We now have complete access to their strategic planning databases, fleet deployment records, and political intelligence files." Sophie smiled with professional satisfaction as she reviewed the intelligence treasure trove that had fallen into human hands. The Confederation had kept detailed records of every species under their control, including comprehensive analyses of weaknesses and vulnerabilities that would prove invaluable for future operations. President Helen Foster addressed the galaxy from the captured council chamber, her words broadcast to every inhabited system through commandeered Confederation communication networks. The message was simple and delivered with the quiet confidence of absolute power. "People of the galaxy," she began, her voice reaching across space to billions of beings who had lived their entire lives under Confederation rule. The old order has ended. You now have a choice that your former masters never offered you. Join us as equals or stand aside while we build a better future without you. The human offer was unprecedented in galactic history. Where the Confederation had ruled through force and economic control, humanity offered partnership to those willing to accept human leadership. The alternative, left carefully unspoken but clearly understood, was irrelevance in a galaxy now dominated by Earth's children. General Maria Santos coordinated the massive logistics operation required to govern a galactic empire, her staff demonstrating the organizational capabilities that had allowed humanity to secretly build the most powerful military force in known existence. Fort Olympus had become the nerve center of human expansion, its computers processing information from thousands of worlds with mechanical precision. Ma'am, preliminary reports from occupied systems indicate minimal resistance to human administration. Colonel Jeff Miller reported from his position at the Strategic Planning Station. Most species appear to be adapting to the new order with surprising speed. Maria nodded thoughtfully as she reviewed the data streams flowing in from across human-controlled space. The galaxy was learning that humans could be generous rulers to those who accepted their authority, but utterly ruthless to those who opposed them. The lesson was being absorbed quickly by species that valued survival over pride. Admiral Peter Hayes commanded the human expansion fleets that were systematically claiming every strategic system in the galaxy, their movements coordinated by planning algorithms that treated interstellar conquest like a mathematical problem to be solved. The former Confederation territories were being absorbed into a human empire that grew stronger with each passing day. Sir, the final Zephyrian holdout systems have agreed to human administration, his chief of staff reported with evident satisfaction. That gives us complete control of the galactic core regions. Peter studied the holographic map that showed the extent of human territory, the blue markers of human control now covering systems that had been governed by alien powers for millennia. Begin Phase 2 of the expansion plan. It's time to introduce ourselves to the independent systems beyond former Confederation space. Dr. Nathan Cross supervised the intelligence operations that were converting former enemies into valuable assets, his analysts processing the vast amounts of data captured during the conquest. The secrets of galactic civilization were being systematically cataloged and studied by human minds that had proven superior at turning knowledge into power. Sir, we've completed the integration of Confederation scientific databases, Agent Linda Foster reported from her workstation. The technological advantages we can derive from their research programs should accelerate human development by at least 50 years, Nathan smiled with satisfaction as he reviewed the preliminary analysis of alien technology and scientific knowledge. Human scientists had always excelled at improving upon existing concepts, and the Confederation's accumulated research represented raw material for innovations that would cement human dominance for generations to come. The transformation of galactic society proceeded with relentless efficiency. Human administrators replaced alien governors throughout former Confederation space, their policies designed to maximize productivity while maintaining social stability. The new order was proving more effective than the old one in ways that surprised even human planners. Lieutenant Colonel Amy Chen commanded the peacekeeping forces that maintained order in occupied territories, her soldiers demonstrating that humans could be as effective at building civilization as they were at destroying it. The same tactical excellence that had won the war was now being applied to the challenges of governing a galactic empire. Engineer Katie Bell led the massive construction projects that were converting alien infrastructure to human standards, her teams working with efficiency that amazed former Confederation engineers. Fortress worlds became industrial centers, military academies became universities, and weapons factories became shipyards for human expansion fleets. The galaxy was learning that humanity possessed virtues beyond military excellence. Human engineers built better infrastructure, human administrators managed resources more effectively, and human scientists developed technologies that benefited everyone under their rule. The conquered were discovering that defeat by humans might be the best thing that had ever happened to them. As the first year of human rule concluded, representatives from dozens of formerly independent species arrived on Earth, seeking voluntary incorporation into the growing human empire. They had watched the systematic dismantling of Confederation power and drawn the obvious conclusion about which side offered the better future. Claire Morgan, now serving as humanity's first ambassador to the galaxy, received these delegations in the same chamber where human surrender had once been demanded. The irony was not lost on anyone present as alien diplomats competed for the privilege of serving human interests. The human hegemony offers partnership to all species willing to contribute to galactic progress, she announced to the assembled delegates. We do not seek to destroy alien cultures, merely to direct them toward more productive purposes. The new galactic order was taking shape according to human design. Species that accepted human leadership found themselves prospering under rulers who understood that effective governance required more than military force. Those who resisted discovered that humans could be patient but never weak, generous but never foolish. The galaxy had learned its lesson about underestimating the species that had clawed its way to dominance on the most dangerous world in known existence. Humans had not come to space as explorers or merchants despite their protestations of peaceful intent.